Welcome to Week 14, everybody. Games kick off tonight with the Rams and the Raiders. Could be Baker Mayfield's return to something. And we welcome you to the show as we break down 6 AFC home. Yeah, I didn't know where I was going with that. Like, it wasn't going to be fantasy relevance. It wasn't going to
Baker's
be.
return to something.
Yeah, I don't know. But we could have him start tonight. We got 6 games to break down. The Jets at the Bills. Jaguars at the Titans. Hopefully Trevor Lawrence can play in this game. Tough matchups for the running backs. It may be for Derrick Henry. You might be surprised, but I'll tell you about that in a moment. Kansas City at Denver, Miami at Los Angeles. That'd be the Chargers. Cleveland at Cincinnati, and Baltimore at Pittsburgh. All right. Hey, 1 week before the playoffs start in most of our leagues, do you guys have a lot on the line this week?
A couple leagues, yeah. Some, hoping for a bye, some hoping to get in. So yes.
Not as much. Most of mine feel like they've pretty much been decided one way or the other. I mean, obviously the Scott Fish Bowl is still a really big thing. Congratulations, Adam, on advancing to round 3.
Congratulations.
But not a whole lot of leagues where I'm sitting like at 6th or 7th. It's pretty much Ricky Bobby.
Yeah.
I think about half of my leagues I'm still in or out, right? Huge week for me. Huge week.
I mean, the biggest thing is I've got to beat you in the IDP league. That's the most important thing. Like, this season could be a complete failure, but if I could go undefeated in the IDP league, then nothing else matters.
I'm going to roll over for you this week. You're going to win this week. I feel pretty good about that. Aaron Jones and David Montgomery are my starting running backs, so you should be good. I'm going to be starting.
Oh, that's the big trade too, right?
At least 2 IDPs that are on bye. That is the big trade. You're going to be just fine in that league. But I will get you back in a couple of weeks. It will be just like the 2007 Patriots. You will beat the Giants in the last week of the regular season, and then familiar ending in the postseason. Okay, let's talk about players we love this week. Jamie, who do we love? Who's our start of the week?
DeAndre Swift. Very excited about what he did last week, and got a chance to speak to him on Tuesday. He was on Fantasy Football Today on CBS Sports HQ. Unfortunately, you cannot find that interview. We were asked to take it down afterwards because DeAndre, unfortunately, where he sat, you can see the plays behind him. So the Lions respectfully asked us to take the video down.
No way.
Understandably so. Yeah, that was fun. But he says he's healthy. I know he showed up on the injury report on Wednesday. That's not the best thing because he didn't show up on the injury report at all last week. And you remember what Dan Campbell said, that, he was looking great. But he told me he feels great. And I'm hoping that, the 51% snap share that he had, most work that he's had since week 1, over 100 total yards, scored a touchdown. Great matchup against the Vikings. They've allowed 5 running backs in their last 4 games to go over 16 PPR points, 6 touchdowns from that group. And I think 3 of those guys, Ramondre Stevenson, Zonovan Knight, and Tony Pollard, all over 100 total yards. So it's been a run defense that's somewhat leaky, or at least the defense to running backs that's somewhat leaky. And hopefully DeAndre Swift takes advantage of it. I think Jamal Williams still get his touchdown. He's got 14 on the season on the ground. Shockingly enough, his entire career prior to this year, he had 13 rushing touchdowns. So I think he'll score again, but I think DeAndre Swift will be the better of the 2 and have a big game.
So you're not, just to reiterate, you're not bothered by the fact that he's back on the injury report?
I'm going to guess it's more of a maintenance thing because unless he was lying to me, which obviously could be the case, he said he feels great. He feels like the ankle and the shoulder are not a thing to worry about anymore. And he hopes to have more opportunities and touches like he had against the Jaguars.
Okay. Don't lie to Jamie. It's not cool. Then we'll take your interview down. Heath, who do you love this week?
I'm going to say, relative to everyone else, I think I love the Broncos. And that's not a very comfortable place to be. But
including the quarterback?
Not the quarterback. Everybody else. Latavius Murray, Jerry Jeudy, Greg Dulcich. You made reference, Adam, that we got excited about them, a month ago when they faced the Raiders, and they scored 16 points. But even in that game, which they played from ahead most of the time, and Russell Wilson only threw 31 passes, Latavius Murray had 17 fantasy points. Cortland Sutton had 13 fantasy points. It's still possible for Russell Wilson to continue to be terrible and these guys to be good. So Jerry Jeudy has been pretty fantastic this year when he's been a full-time player. In the games that he's played at least 80% of the snaps, he's averaging 14.5 PPR fantasy points per game. Latavius Murray had 4 catches in Mike Boone's first game back, so I think he's still got a role in the passing game, and the Chiefs are one of the worst in the NFL against pass-catching running backs. And they're talking about using Greg Dulcich more as a wide receiver, more downfield. I think all 3 of those guys can be good starters this week against the Chiefs. And really, if you look at their schedule, it's possible they could be good starters for most of the rest of the season.
Okay, that's definitely one of the games that we're talking about today. The other game I mentioned was the game against the Titans. It's coming off the Broncos bye. The Titans had basically half their starting defense out, and they were awful. I mean, they were just that may have been the game where Jerry Jeudy got hurt though after one play. I don't remember. But yeah, the Broncos have let us down before. But okay, it's bold. I mean, Jeudy seems actually like somebody I'm going to be telling everyone to start. Where do you guys have him? I can just imagine all the Jerry Jeudy questions pouring in on Sunday, and I'm going to be like, Jeudy, start Jeudy, and then I'm going to hate myself. But where do you have him ranked?
20th?
I'm adjusting my rankings this morning, and he'll probably be close to 15.
Okay. So I guess everyone's going to be on the same page there. Players to avoid. Keith, how you feeling? You want to go first here, or you want to?
I've got a controversial one that I'm going to talk about on CBS Sports HQ at noon Eastern today. I'm pretty worried about Najee Harris. I hate the fact that Jaylen Warren came back and Najee Harris's role in the passing game completely disappeared. He's basically right in that Isaiah Pacheco group of guys who might get you 20 carries, might not catch a pass. The problem is he's playing a Ravens team in a game that has an over-under of 37. So a very likely 20-carry, 80-yard, 8 fantasy point game is possible for Najee Harris. I would like to not start him, even with 6 teams on a bye. He's not a top 24 running back for me this week, and I would start Latavius Murray over Najee Harris.
And just to keep going, just to keep it going with the running backs you love. I mean, I know you guys are going to start Swift over him. Are you going to start Jamal Williams over Najee Harris?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and you said 20 carries. There have actually only been 3 running backs with more than 14 carries against the Ravens. One of them was Latavius Murray last week, and I do wonder if that stat's not really going to hold up if Lamar Jackson's not playing. They're just not going to be able to possess the ball as much. But the Ravens see the 3rd fewest running back carries in the NFL per game. So it's a terrible matchup. Their run defense has been unbelievable since they acquired Roquan Smith. Wasn't bad even before that. So yeah, okay. Najee Harris, someone you should try to avoid for Latavius Murray and Jamal Williams. I will say Jamal Williams, we're not going to talk about him today. That's on tomorrow's show, but Jamal Williams absolutely terrifies me. Because he had 11 carries last week. He has to score. He's not getting the 15, 16 anymore.
I think it's a question of what you expect with the touchdown, because at this point, you never want to predict touchdowns, but he's pretty predictable at this point, So I think you give him 6, and then you give him 20 yards on top of that, 30 yards on top of it.
It's funny.
I mean, that's
guess the 2 teams that give up the most rushing touchdowns from the 2-yard line or closer.
The Vikings and the Lions.
Correct. Is that funny? They're facing.
Well, that's the other thing is like I mentioned the over-under in that Baltimore-Pittsburgh game. There's a 15-point difference between these 2 games in terms of over-under. One of them's 37, the other one's 52.
All right, Jamie, who are you avoiding?
Did it go down?
What's that?
I thought it was 53. Did it go down?
It may have. I haven't checked it this morning, so it may be 53.
Who are you avoiding, Jamie?
I'll stick with the same position. Dameon Pierce. It's a brutal matchup against the Cowboys, and I know obviously same thing with Najee Harris. There's 6 teams on a bye. It's hard to bench these guys, so I get it. It's hard to get them out of your lineup. But we saw what this was like for Dameon Pierce before facing the Browns, the previous 2 games against 2 good run defenses of the Commanders and the Dolphins, and he stunk. And the Cowboys' run defense has been pretty awesome. So if they're behind, which I expect they will be, and his role in the passing game is somewhat there, but you're talking maybe 3 catches at most. I'm nervous about him, so he hasn't scored a touchdown in what seems like forever. I think it's week 4 since last time he found the end zone. And so lack of scoring, minimal work in the passing game, rushing yards could be at a minimum here. So I think it's back to where we were 2 weeks ago where he could be in a bad spot.
All right, so are you guys going to start Cam Akers over Najee Harris or Dameon Pierce?
I'm not there yet.
Nope.
But, whenever we say things like this, I don't want to speak for Heath. I'll speak for myself. But, because I'm with Heath on Najee as well, that you can't bench these guys this week. it's virtually impossible. You have to have just the perfect type of roster construction to be able to get away from guys that are getting the ball 15 plus times. But it's just, like when I put him in the sit section of start sit, Heath in what he, writes and Dave as well, you have to sort of understand, like, we're just telling you to lower your expectations because, again, if you're lucky enough to play, to have guys, or like I go back to Jeff Wilson over those two guys, for example.
Yep.
Because I like the setup that he has against the Chargers, and it's risky because he got one carry last week and Raheem Mostert may be better. But I just think, looking at it logically, there's a better chance for guy against Chargers versus guy against Cowboys or guy against Ravens. And if the workload is similar, I think the guy with the better matchup is always going to win out.
And Zonovan Knight and Isaiah Pacheco and Rashad White. Like there's
Deontay Foreman.
Yep.
Yeah. Hopefully Foreman plays. He did not practice.
But if it's not, I would say Chuba Hubbard over those guys too.
Mm-hmm. We have no idea what's going on with the Seattle backfield. We'll tell you that in a minute, or what's going to happen with the Seattle backfield. Get you the news and notes in a moment. But you got to follow all this stuff on the CBS Sports app. All right. You listen and you watch the podcast. You got your best bets in now, and it's time to follow the action. And the best way to do that is at the CBS Sports app. It features lightning fast live scoring for every pro and college football game. All major sports, of course. You can track your favorite teams or just individual games that you have an interest in with the click of a button. And it's also the way I get my breaking news alerts. Watch live sports. Stay on top of all the latest updates. It is totally free, whether you have an iPhone or an Android, and it's the easiest way to keep your finger on the pulse of every game that matters. Trust me, not going to regret it. Download the CBS Sports app. It is awesome. Blows away whatever app you're using now if you're not using the CBS Sports app. So get it. News and notes. Okay, Trevor Lawrence has a foot injury. He says he's going to play. CJ Beathard is his backup. Says he's, planning on playing, I think. But, wow. Do you guys expect Trevor Lawrence to play at this point?
Yes.
Okay, fingers crossed. Because I would love those 40 pass attempts that every quarterback gets against the Titans. Lamar Jackson's not going to play. Baker Mayfield could start tonight. John Wolford has a neck injury. Mayfield is well-versed in the playbook after 2 days. So well-versed that he's willing to show it to HQ. Jimmy Garoppolo could return it seems unlikely. Maybe the Super Bowl. Tua Tagovailoa should be good for this week. And at running back, Michael Carter practiced in full, but Robert Saleh said Zonovan Knight, Bam Knight, is not going anywhere. So you guys have Knight, I think, somewhere around 15th. We'll talk about that game shortly. Zach Taylor said that Joe Mixon is their starting running back. How about this? Samaje Perine has scored 19.3 or more PPR fantasy points in 3 straight games, and Joe Mixon has done that twice all season in essentially 9.5 games. Do you guys expect a typical workload for Joe Mixon this week, assuming he hasn't officially – I don't know if he's officially cleared the concussion protocol, but it looks like it's going to happen.
He has not. It's the same path that you typically see. Practice in full, then you clear the protocol by the end of the week, I would guess, hopefully by Friday. I guess if you have to make a decision on, Cam Akers potentially versus Joe Mixon, maybe you play it safe, but I think it looks like Mixon's going to play, so just keep an eye on that. But I would anticipate as close to a full workload as Joe Mixon. We've seen this scenario before where P. Ryan's come on for him and then disappeared. I don't think it'll be the same scenario, but game flow will probably matter. If they want P. Ryan on pass down, we know what happened in the postseason last year. They like P. Ryan a lot. So I think you'll see P. Ryan enough that you can maybe use him as a flex, but I think Mixon's a locked-in number 1 running back.
Okay. Josh Jacobs is going to play tonight, reportedly. Ken Walker and DJ Dallas missed practice. Travis Homer was limited. Today's going to be a big day on the practice front for the Seahawks, and then Friday as well. But it's not a surprise that Walker and Dallas did not practice on Wednesday. Travis Homer, though, does get into the equation here. Deontay Foreman missed practice, but he plans to play at Seattle. Najee Harris missed practice with an oblique injury. That's not a surprise. He expects to play. Mark Ingram is likely out for the season, so if you're banking on Kamara, that's one less impediment for him. DeAndre Swift back on the injury report, but as we talked about earlier, we're not too concerned about it. Brandon Cooks missed practice as we look at the wide receivers. Mike Williams was limited, so he's trending in the right direction to play on Sunday night. Jalen Waddle was limited, same thing for him. Rondale Moore was not seen at practice. They have a Monday night game. You'll get an official report, a practice report today for the Cardinals. Cortland Sutton unlikely to play, and Kadarius Toney was back. He was limited in practice. Do you think Kadarius Toney is worth rostering right now?
Yes and no. I think you can certainly do it if you have a roster spot you've been, toying with and not really important to you right now. But also, Mecole Hardman can return in Week 15, and so it may just be a 1 week scenario, and he may not even play. So it's not a must add by any stretch.
All right, tight end news. Darren Waller expects to play next week. David Njoku is going to play this week, and Hayden Hurst is likely out. Teron Armstead, as we look at offensive lines, and basically the two offensive line notes I have right now are in that same game, the Chargers-Dolphins game. Teron Armstead missed practice, and two linemen for the Chargers could be on their way back. Corey Linsley progressing through the concussion protocol. He's their starting center. At right tackle, Trey Pipkins is day-to-day. Defensively, the Giants pretty beat up. Leonard Williams, one of their best players. He has a neck issue. He did not practice, and they're still missing cornerback Adoree Jackson. Meanwhile, Philadelphia could get slot cornerback Avonte Maddox back. Dave was giving me the numbers yesterday that they've been struggling against the slot since Maddox left with an injury. Since Maddox started missing games, he could play this week. Tennessee starting cornerback Christian Fulton, their best cornerback, he has a groin injury, and he did not practice. Charger safety Derwin James is day-to-day. Buffalo defensive end Von Miller is out for the season, or edge rusher, whatever you want to call him. Seattle safety Ryan Neal missed practice. It's a pretty big deal for their defense. He's been beat up lately. It was good to see Arizona cornerback Byron Murphy back on the practice field. Hopefully he can make it back for this game against the Patriots on Monday. And this is a big deal. All the things I said about the Raiders having a good run defense, because they really have, in terms of, per carry, two running backs, I think they're seventh best, I said. They're going to be missing a starting defensive tackle, Andrew Billings, a starting linebacker, Jayon Brown, and also, for what it's worth, starting cornerback, Rock Ya-Sin. They're very beat up going into this game tonight against the Rams. And the Vikings have probably the flu. A few key defensive players missing practice with an illness on that. Whew. Okay, you ready for one question for each game?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you for your patience getting through the injuries. Hopefully they are helpful for people. The Jets are at the Bills. Who's a better flex, Bam Knight or Gabe Davis?
Bam.
I would say Bam. I mean, they probably will have the same amount of catches if things continue. And, one guy's getting over 100 total yards on a consistent basis without scoring a touchdown. One guy is needing a touchdown to be good at this point.
Jacksonville at Tennessee, starter sit. Travis.
By the way, just because you brought up the Vikings, Lions, how they marry each other with the goal line, the only two teams yet to allow a touchdown to a tight end are the Jets and Bills.
How about that? That's very interesting. Jacksonville, Tennessee, starter sit Travis Etienne.
You got to start.
Do you, though?
You do. No question.
Again, I think it's a better version of Najee and Pierce.
I know. It's one of those things where I have him only in one league, unfortunately, and I will start him because I have two. I have also in that league Aaron Jones and David Montgomery, so I don't even know who I'm starting with him. Oh, I think I have Bam Knight in that league. And I'm just not happy about it. Just one of those. There's so many of those throughout the year. You start a guy, you're nervous about it. Hopefully they throw it to him. The Titans see the most running back targets in the NFL, and Trevor Lawrence just doesn't do that. Hopefully that changes this week. Kansas City at Denver, Jerry Jeudy or Juju Smith-Schuster?
Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy or Bam Knight?
Bam.
Even in full PPR?
Again, the catches are probably favored.
Do you think that's going to be the case, though, with Michael Carter back?
I think, as Heath has illustrated for a few times, that Mike White is not just throwing on third downs to his running backs. He's throwing on first and second downs to his running backs.
I don't mean it in that sense. I don't think Michael Carter is going to be the third down back. I think that's going to be Ty Johnson. I think that he's going to play more on first and second down, certainly, than James Robinson did last
Bam Knight's not going anywhere.
He's not. But does that mean that Michael Carter is going to have no role like James Robinson?
I think Carter replaces Johnson.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. The first half 2 weeks ago, they all played, and Ty Johnson was the third down back. But that could certainly happen. All right, the Dolphins are at the Chargers. Can you trust a Dolphins running back in this game?
Trust is a tough word.
It's not that tough. Trust? I don't know.
We're big trust. I think I'll go back to Wilson as a number 2 running back.
It's just on a hope and a prayer, though. There's no And I've got Mostert as a high end flex as well. Like one of those guys could be a top 15 running back, but who knows?
I couldn't find anything about why Wilson only got one carry. He had a bad drop. I don't know if he was punished for that, but I was looking, I couldn't find a single thing. I don't know if we have any insight to that at all, but it was surprising and crappy.
I gave you my theory on Sunday night.
I don't remember.
You're just back in San Francisco and decided to do what they did in the old days with the running backs.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's probably what it was. Yeah. Cleveland at Cincinnati. How much faith do you have in the Browns passing game against what's been a very good pass defense?
Not much.
I'm starting Amari Cooper, and it feels dumb, but other than that, none.
I'm starting Judy over Cooper just to tie in the guy we've been talking about.
Okay.
I might make that move too. I feel better about it.
Okay. He is on the road, of course. A true road game.
But he's in the same state.
Ooh, that's true. Is it drivable? Can he like sleep at home and take the drive?
We tried that last week though with he's playing back in his old state.
But this is one of two places they take a bus to, right? They take a bus to Detroit. They take a bus to Cincinnati.
I guess. I mean, you're not
All
sitting
right.
Cooper,
I like the bus theory. You know, the last two road games, he has been shadowed by a good cornerback. I went and I watched all of his routes this morning from the game last week against the Texans. And Steven Nelson is a guy that nobody really knows about or talks about. But Steven Nelson's having a very good year, at least according to PFF rankings at cornerback for the Texans. And he lined up opposite Amari Cooper, I'm pretty sure, every single snap that Cooper was not in the slot. And he did a good job against him. Two road games ago, I'm not counting the Bills games, neutral site, but 2 road games ago was Xavier Howard following around. I don't think that the Bengals really have that guy. I don't think they're going to put Eli Apple on him. So, or, shadow him. And I don't think that'd be a bad thing if they did. So with Awuzie out, just wanted to bring that up. If you're wondering what the hell happened to Amari Cooper, he got shadowed by Steven Nelson. 3 road games ago, he got shadowed by Xavier Howard. Baltimore at Pittsburgh. Is Mark Andrews the only must-start player in this game?
Yep.
by definition of liking, yes.
Right. All right, we're gonna take a break. When we come back,
No,
Jets.
Freiermuth. You gotta start Freiermuth.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry.
I did a
Why
bad
did I
job.
forget about him? What's the last game we're going to talk about? So let me give you some Pat Freiermuth stats here. I'll let Heath talk about touchdown regression. This is this is an interesting conversation. Pat Freiermuth has, I think, the 5th most targets and the 4th most yards among tight ends. Okay, I simply cannot find this stat.
Well, I
He has
mean,
1 touchdown. Yes.
my favorite is that he has 3 fewer targets than last year, 100 more yards than last year, and 6 fewer touchdowns.
But when you put that in perspective, and you look at Kenny Pickett, who's not throwing touchdowns, and the fact that Pat Freiermuth only has 6 red zone and 4 green zone targets this year, how does that all come together when projecting touchdowns for Freiermuth?
I would expect, based on his usage and Kenny Pickett's touchdowns, that he would have 3 or 4 this year.
Is what, 1?
He has 1. I would have expected last year that he would have had 4 or 5. He had 7.
All right, we're going to take a break. Jets at Bills. When we come back, hopefully it's a good one. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. The odds makers don't think this one's going to be a good one. Last I checked, it was about 10 points. Let's see. Bills are 9.5-point favorites against the Jets. The Jets beat them a few weeks ago, so that's interesting. Jets put up certainly a big fight last week at the Vikings. Anyway, stat of the game. The Jets have allowed 14.2 or more PPR fantasy points to a running back in 4 of their last 5 games. The only exception was the Bills. Jamie, do you like a Bills running back in this game? How do you see it working out between Cook and Singletary?
I don't love either one. I think both are flexes. I would still lean towards Singletary because of just the 1-game sample size that James Cook was better than him. I don't want to rush to conclusion that all of a sudden they're switching their philosophy on who's going to be the lead guy. But I think he's noted this on HQ, maybe it was Monday, that they certainly have proven in the past with Sean McDermott that they've not been afraid to go out of nowhere to Zach Moss over Devin Singletary on a whim. So they could go to James Cook as the lead guy. But I have them basically back to back. They're both in my top 30. I would still start Pierce and Harris over both. It would not be surprising though if James Cook is better than either one, and better than Singletary if he continues to have this role in the passing game. I mean, if he's getting 5-6 catches a week, he only had 6 last week for 41 yards, then that's going to be hard to overlook. But I still think Singletary should get the slight edge just based on what he's done all season, and still being the preferred option in terms of their goal line opportunities.
And I think in terms of the production they've allowed to running backs, it's worth saying it was Ramondre Stevenson twice, David Montgomery, and Dalvin Cook. There were no slouches at running back that they allowed to score 14 PPR fantasy points or more.
Yeah, and Stevenson had 7 catches in one game, 6 catches in the other. Montgomery had just a solid game all around, but he had 3 catches for 34 yards.
And he was without Khalil Herbert in that game.
He was. Now, I think, I don't know I'm sorry if you mentioned this. James Cook has 11 targets in his last 2 games, and Devin Singletary does not have more than 2, I think, in 4 or 5 straight games. So if you have James Cook, hopefully that trend can continue where he's getting catches. Not necessarily the third down back, but he's getting a lot more targets than Singletary. Najee or Cook? Rank Najee with these guys. Did that, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Sorry, I was looking up that stat. What was the answer? How did you rank Najee with those guys?
Najee, Singletary, Cook.
Same.
Okay. I guess we'll stick with the Bills. Any concerns about Josh Allen? You starting him without question?
I don't know. I think Tyler Huntley might be a little bit better. Maybe there's a chance for Brock Purdy, but Josh Allen has had some good moments this year, so probably stick with him.
Well, not so well. I guess he had the 2 rushing, 86 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns against the Jets, but the Jets have allowed 4 touchdown passes in their last 9 games. You know what? Josh Allen's a little bit lower than he usually is. He's about 5th. He's 4th for Jamie, 3rd for Heath, 5th for Dave, which is low for Josh Allen. Okay. Stephon Diggs is a start. Let's talk about Gabe Davis and Isaiah McKenzie. Heath, you are the high guy, barely, on Gabe Davis. You have him 23rd in PPR. He's closer to like 26 for Jamie and Dave.
Yeah, I said this, I think it was like a month ago, that I'm just basically going to rank Gabe Davis as a borderline number 2, high-end number 3 wide receiver every week because he's like the slot machine. Like he's going to get 5 to 7 targets, probably. And they might go for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns, and they might go for 15 yards and no touchdowns.
Yeah, it's
you have to feel somewhat good about that call, Heath. I mean, you had him as a bust this season.
Yeah.
Well, I can't believe he has only 1 game with more than 7 targets. That's just crazy.
Well, but I don't think it's crazy based on what we were hoping he would become this year. It's not crazy based on what he was last year. Like even when he had his good stretch, he scored a bunch of touchdowns, but it was mostly on the 6 or 7 targets.
Yeah, but even Isaiah McKenzie has 2 games with more than 7 targets,
I think that McKenzie's role, though, like Dave Davis, you've talked about this a lot. The guy has an ADOT that's just almost entirely down the field. It's hard to be a consistent high target earner. Isaiah McKenzie's getting targets that are 3 yards from the line of scrimmage.
Okay, so you guys are definitely starting Jerry Jeudy over Gabe Davis. Let's see. Would you start? You wouldn't start like Deontay Johnson, who catches 4 or 5 balls every game. You wouldn't start him over Davis.
No, I think in this case, as he alluded to, you play the upside card here. Right. So you're hoping for the big game. You're hoping for more than just the touchdown catch that he had last week. You're hoping for what we expected Gabe Davis to be. I mean, I'm a little bit lower. I think I'm just going to keep him in the high end number 3 receiver range, but similar to Heath, like you're ranking him in a certain spot with the hope of what he can become. I think anybody who's been rostering Gabe Davis at this point understands that he's probably going to let you down more so than deliver. But when he does deliver, he's winning you your week. So that's the type of player he is.
There's probably 5 guys I have ranked in that range that I have a hard time with him. And 2 guys I have ahead of him still are Marquise Brown and Mike Evans. But I don't feel good about them either. And then the guys that I have behind him, Juju, Deebo Samuel, DJ Moore, I kind of want to move those guys ahead of him.
Okay. Are you starting Isaiah McKenzie? Anybody interested in McKenzie?
No.
Okay. Dawson Knox? No?
No.
Knox or Conklin?
Conklin.
They're both in very bad spots. I'll take the guy with Josh Allen, slightly ahead of the guy with Mike White.
Okay. Dawson Knox has a combined 17 yards on 3 targets in his last 2 games. But in the 2 games before that, he had 127 yards. He had 13 targets. So you never know. All right, going over to the Jets. Starter sit Mike White. You know what? Let me ask you this more broadly. You think the Jets offense does well in this game?
No.
I think that there will be good fantasy production from a few guys. I don't think they score a bunch of points. Like you mentioned, the spread of 9.5, the over/under 43.5. That means they've got an implied point total of basically 17.
Yeah.
I might go slightly over that, but it'd be because of garbage time in the fourth quarter is what you're hoping for, I think.
See, I think they keep the game close. I mean, the Jets defense has been fantastic. The Bills offense has been struggling. I think this is going to, I think Vegas has the number pretty close to accurate, low 40s. I would anticipate a similar game from Mike White that you got last week, something over 300 yards, which will help Garrett Wilson from a yardage perspective, from a catch perspective. Somebody else could be Conklin, might be surprised because the Bills are so good against tight ends, but it could be Corey Davis, maybe Elijah Moore. Hopefully it's the running backs because I think he's going to be under a lot of pressure. So it's going to be probably Zonovan Knight and maybe one of the other 2 guys contributing in that regard. But I think this is going to be a turnover game for Mike White because the Bills are going to put him in some tough spots and some, down and distance situations that are not comfortable for him. And so this could feel like a 300, 1-2 type of game for White. Remember, he had 4 picks against them last year.
Yeah.
And so, it's a very scary thing, for the Mike White truthers, that first game last year, great. Second game looking good, but got hurt. Third game, Bills turned into a pumpkin. First game this year looked great. Second game, not perfect, but over 350 yards. And then third game, Bills. They may make him uncomfortable again.
I'd start Tyler Huntley over him.
Okay, there's actually a pretty big injury in this game.
I'd start Brock Purdy over Mike White too.
If you watch the Bills game last week, my personal thought was they looked amazing except for one spot, left tackle. They had a hobbled second string left tackle who couldn't do anything and really held them back. Deion Dawkins is their starting left tackle. He was limited in practice yesterday. So, I mean, if he plays, if they're better at left tackle, they crushed the Patriots. They really looked. This is the possibility of them just running away with the division now. They smashed the Patriots last week. I guess the Dolphins, we'll see what happens, but the Armstead injury is big. But anyway, this is a chance for them to assert themselves, and we'll see. I think the Dawkins injury is a big deal. See if they're good at left tackle, but it's good that he was limited in practice yesterday, hopefully on his way back. All right, so that's the thing. I know we're going to start Garrett Wilson. He's a must-start guy. He's top 15 for everyone. He's 8th for Heath. But Bam Knight, you could see game script going really bad for him unless you just think that he's just going to catch enough passes where it won't matter.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let me talk about Bam Knight here. Let's do Bam Knight or Joe Mixon.
Mixon.
Zeke.
Knight.
Zeke.
James Conner against the Patriots.
Connor.
Saquon Barkley.
Barkley.
All right. Okay, I think that's it for this game. No Corey Davis, right?
No.
Deep league, third option.
All right, Jacksonville is at Tennessee. Stat of the game. A running back has scored 10.4 or more PPR fantasy points against Tennessee in 7 straight games. That's a nice, decent floor. Nobody has scored. Oh, just Pirine. Pirine's the only one who scored more than 15.5 in those 7 games. But so much of that is receiving. You look at those last 7 games against the Titans, only 2 running backs have more than 40 rushing yards. None had 60 rushing yards. Can they throw the ball to Travis Etienne, please? Trevor Lawrence is 9th in the NFL in pass attempts, but 17th in pass attempts to his running backs. I mentioned earlier the Titans see the most running back targets per game in the NFL. And, I'll flip it around. And honestly, you look at the Jaguars, and they're not that bad against the run. They're bad against running backs as they give up a ton of receiving production. But I guess the general question here is, Heath, I'll throw it to you. How much faith do you have in these 2 running backs who are struggling in different ways going into this game.
I'm pretty much starting both of them without thinking twice about it. There have been, if you take out the game where he only played 5 snaps, Travis Etienne has at least 3 targets in 4 of his last 5 games. One of those games he has 5 targets. He hasn't done very much with them has been the problem. He's got a game with 3 catches for 6 yards and 3 catches for 12 yards. I would anticipate against the Titans he'd be more successful on his 3 or 4 catches that he gets in this game. And I would think there'd be more passes to him because of the way the Titans play defense. And Henry, the bad thing will be if he struggles again this week and you just have no choice but to start him again next week because it's an even better matchup. But I'm not giving much consideration to sitting either one of these guys.
Okay, I won't belabor the point then. Which quarterback you like better, Jamie, Lawrence or Tannehill?
Lawrence, assuming gets in some significant practice. Hopefully, limited by Friday. If he doesn't practice at all, but still says he's going to play, and Treylon Burks does play, then I might make it a little bit closer. But Lawrence has much more upside. Just given the fact of how he's performed. The fact that he was able to come back and still get you 18 points last week, I think speaks to where he's at right now. That he's playing well enough. Zay Jones was a disaster last week and didn't help him out at all. I think that Lawrence is in a good groove right now. So he's playing well. Forget about his fantasy production. He's just playing well. So if he's healthy, I think he'll take advantage of the secondary.
Okay. I didn't mention Treylon Burks, I think, during the injury segment, but he did not practice on Wednesday. He's in the concussion protocol. Tannehill or Mike White?
Tannehill.
I would go Mike White.
This matchup is so good. The Jaguars have, I think it's like 22 or more points to a quarterback in 5 of their last 6 games. They have been just awful against the pass. And the Titans give up the most pass attempts. They see the most pass attempts in the NFL by like 3 more than second most team, which is Minnesota. So hopefully we can get the wide receivers and the quarterbacks going in this game. And that brings us to Christian Kirk and Zay Jones. I'm assuming Kirk is like a slam dunk.
Yes, not as much if Beathard starts, but obviously if Lawrence is fine, I think Kirk's got number one wide receiver, not the top receiver, but top 12. Okay,
what about Zay Jones? 63% rostered. Heath, are you projecting a bounce back for Zay Jones?
Yeah, I think he will be right in that Corey Davis range. I think I have them back to back as low end number 3 wide receivers. So not quite as high as we had Zay Jones ranked last week, but I still it was awful last week, but he still had 7 targets. I still think you project 8 to 9 targets in this game for him because they're going to throw even more passes against the Titans. And most of the time this season, that's translated into 5 for 60 or 6 for 70 or something like that.
I just want to go backtrack a little bit to Trevor Lawrence because I probably should have done some Trevor Lawrence ors. Would you start Trevor Lawrence or Derek Carr tonight?
Got to start Carr, I think.
Got to start Carr.
Oh, yeah, right, because the injury. Okay, sorry. Trevor Lawrence or Kirk Cousins?
I love Cousins this week.
I'm going with Cousins. I don't know. I'm not gonna say I love him, but I'll go with Cousins.
You want my favorite Cousins stat?
Yeah.
So Kirk Cousins, his last 5 trips to Detroit, he has passed for 1,675 yards.
Wow.
So make sure I get it right here. 1,637 yards, 15 total touchdowns, no interceptions.
Oh my gosh. It's a Lions defense that's a lot better than it's been in a long time, though.
100%. Totally agree. That's nothing to say that is predicting any future stats for him, but it's just what he's done in the past.
That's a great stat. Trevor Lawrence, last one, or Tom Brady at the Niners?
Lawrence.
Lawrence, because
Okay.
You'll know by then.
Tannehill or Brady?
Tannehill.
Brady for me.
All right, what else we got in this game? Henry. Yeah, we'll get the tight ends. We'll get the tight ends in a second. In case anyone's interested, Jacksonville, they give up just under 4 yards per carry to running backs. They've held Dameon Pierce, Deion Jackson, Latavius Murray, Josh Jacobs, Gus Edwards, and Jamal Williams to under 4 yards per carry. That's all within their last 7 games. When you got a guy like Henry who's not running the ball very well right now, I wonder if that matters to you at all. Apparently it does not. He's top 6 in both formats. If Treylon Burks plays, are you starting him?
I I would start him as certainly a number 3 receiver in 3 receiver leagues. I think you just have to anticipate what the concussion situation is right now. He's not playing. So I think, if you're talking about Mac Hollins, maybe Van Jefferson, those would be the only, I think, auxiliary parts to this game tonight. Mac Hollins, I would definitely play. I'd wait it out if Van Jefferson was my other option.
Heath, do you like Evan Ingram this week?
No, but I think he's really close to my top 12. So he's like tight end 12 or 13. You hope he scores a touchdown.
If Mike Williams plays, Evan Ingram or Gerald Everett?
Ingram.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. And what about on the other side? Chig Okonkwo, 19% rostered. Heath, I think I saw a tweet that his route participation or something, or his target share went way up after the Traylon Burks injury.
Season high, 58% of the snaps. They've used him more like a wide receiver, more like the Falcons used Kyle Pitts last year. Just send him downfield. He's averaging 18 yards per catch and had a season high in snaps, a season high in catches, season high in yards. He has 5 targets in back-to-back games. He's a desperation dart throw, but I kind of like him a little bit. Definitely a deep dynasty stash.
That's Chig Okonkwo. On CBS, it's like Chigozium Okonkwo.
Chig, for sure.
Chig is what we're going to call
He was, I believe, the fastest tight end at the combine.
He also had a season high in routes run last week. He ran 20 routes, so it's positive. It's in the right direction. Jacksonville 20th against opposing tight ends, and they have allowed 4 touchdowns to tight ends, 2 of them to Chiefs tight ends this season. Okay, if Trevor Lawrence is out, where do you think you'd rank the Titans DST?
If it's CJ Beathard?
Yeah.
Top 5.
Yep.
All right, Kansas City's at Denver.
They're already top 10 for me with Lawrence.
You guys realize, yeah, I'm sure the answer is yes, but I had no freaking idea that on Christmas weekend, there's almost all of the games are on Saturday.
Well, some of us work on days.
I work on Sunday too. I had no idea. I had no clue until Schaefer told me yesterday, because we're probably going to move the Sunday morning live stream to Saturday morning. And it's funny. It's like we're doing Christmas on Christmas Eve this year, and I was so happy. I was like, yes, I don't have to miss football Sunday. And then I found out that all the games are on Saturday, basically, except for 3. So be prepared for that, people. It's a Christmas Eve special football. And Schaefer and I go head to head. Giants fight.
Wouldn't it be Christmas Eve day?
Man.
Like Eve is the night, right?
No. Christmas Eve is just the day before Christmas.
Is the day before or the night before?
The day before.
I mean, I'm obviously the wrong person to ask, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's the day before Christmas. That's what Eve means. Like Adam and Eve. Kansas City at Denver. All right. Denver's defense certainly bounced back last week, especially their pass rush. They had a terrible pass rush for the first 3 games without Bradley Chubb, but last week they had 4 sacks, the 5th highest pressure rate at the Ravens. All right. I don't really have a great stat for this one. Do the Chiefs do whatever they want, Heath, or are they limited by the Broncos defense in any way?
I would expect they'll be maybe just a little bit limited early in the game, and then they'll figure it out and do whatever they want. This one I have very similar line to Bills Jets, which sounds strange, really, except for the Bills are at home and the Chiefs are on the road. Yeah, I think they'll probably put up 27 points.
I have to clarify that I was joking about the Adam and Eve thing. I know that it has nothing to do with Christmas Eve. Okay, sorry. What did you say? 24 points? Is that what you
27.
said? 27 points for the Chiefs. All right, Pacheco or Latavius Murray, guys? Who's your favorite running back in this game?
I like Pacheco just because I think they're going to win the game and win it easily. So I think he's going to have another opportunity to score, but it would not be surprising if Murray is better because of his catches.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. Pacheco in none, Latavius in full PPR. In half PPR, I will go Latavius.
Pacheco, by the way, huge development. He had 3 catches in his first 10 games. He has 3 catches in his last 2 games. So that's cool.
That is cool.
Jerick McKinnon or Najee Harris?
Najee.
Najee, right?
Najee or Jerick McKinnon?
Yeah, you can't trust McKinnon, right?
No.
All right. Okay. Juju. Jamie, starter sit Juju Smith-Schuster.
Starting 3 receiver leagues. Getting a little nervous just because of what's happened to him the last month. Obviously, some of it is injury related, clearly with the concussion and missing a game. But the last 2 weeks, he's getting banged up. He's not getting as involved as we would like. Heath made mention of this on HQ, which I agree. You have to factor it in that Mahomes only threw 20 passes in that game, or 27 passes in that game last week against the Bengals. So he may throw more. I would assume he throws more, but he may not have to throw more. This is a tough secondary, so it's not like it's going to be a cakewalk for him. The one thing that's been constant for the Broncos has been their pass defense. So I think Juju is somebody that you kind of start with some trepidation. The one thing I have him in, because of buys, I'm starting him, but I don't love it.
Okay, how do you like Pacheco or Juju more?
I give a slight lean to Pacheco.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Even in PPR.
Yeah. Russell Wilson, as much as
I kind of feel just to not to derail this, but I feel kind of like Pacheco, like I do with Gabe Davis. Like, there's a big game waiting to happen, but he's tied to a great quarterback, but it's just the production lately has been very frustrating.
That's interesting. That's an interesting comparison because Pacheco, I feel like at this point you know what you're getting. You're going to get a good amount of carries. He has 4 straight games with 14 or more carries, 2 straight games with a rushing touchdown.
Did I say Pacheco and Gabe Davis?
Yep.
Oh, you meant Juju?
Juju and Gabe Davis.
Okay.
I apologize.
Okay. It's a good thing I didn't pretend to agree with the comparison. That I would.
Yeah, no. I'm sorry. I meant Juju and Gabe Davis.
Okay.
No, Pacheco, I feel good about.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you get a blowout win. In the 5 games they've won by 10 or more points, the running backs have had 23, 32, 16, 17, and 26 carries. So that's 3 of 5 blowout wins with 23 or more carries for Kansas City running backs. Start Kelsey and sit Russell Wilson. Latavius Murray you guys like him better than Dave. Dave has him 30th. You guys have him 21st for Jamie, 16th for Heath. I don't know. Who's in that range? Let's see. Let's take a look at Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's low on him because I had to do our notes for HQ and Dave has Murray as a sit. I'm always the last to put my guys in. I would have used Murray as a sit, but Heath got him in first. So I'm going to make Heath and Dave argue about Latavius Murray.
You would have used them as a start or a sit?
Start.
Sorry, you said sit. Okay.
Yeah. What did I say? Sit?
Yeah.
It's one of those weeks. You should have seen how I butchered name that player yesterday.
Ooh, I would have liked that.
I think, you've seen 2 of the last 3 games, 21 total touches. He's, 4 catches in those 2 games. I think this is a game where they're chasing points. He's going to be involved in the passing game. No Cortland Sutton. There's a lot to like about Latavius Murray this week. And you say this all the time. What the Chiefs give up, to running backs in the passing game, he should be heavily involved from Russell Wilson as he's running for his life.
Been a lot better in the passing game, I think, again. Well, not last week. 6 catches for 49 yards to P. Ryan, but like Eckler to 2 catches for 17 yards, McCaffrey 2 for 24. But yeah, they do give up a ton in the passing game. All right, Latavius Murray or Miles Sanders at the Giants?
Sanders. I mean, this could be a 2-touchdown game for Sanders.
Oh, shut up, Jamie. Did you mix up the names and mean to say Barkley?
No, it could be a 2-touchdown game for Barkley.
No, it's going to be a 3-touchdown game for Sanders. I can't believe.
Oh no, it's Boston Scott week.
Oh no, you're right about that. That game opened at 5.5. I can't believe that's only a 7-point spread. It shocks me. All right. A Dolphins running back or Latavius?
Latavius.
All right. We like Jerry Jeudy quite a bit. He's going to be top 20. Start him. Sutton's unlikely to play. Greg Dulcich or Pat Freiermuth?
Freiermuth.
Okay, but is Dulcich in that group of starts, group of, what's the name of the group, Heath?
No, he's not in the circle of trust. He is in the triangle of consideration. But no, he's the very top of the triangle. He's the first guy that's not in that you just start him and don't think about it.
Do you like him better than George Kittle this week?
I do.
Yeah. Kittle was 22nd in my projections because of what the last month has looked like. And I just moved him up to 8th because his name's George Kittle and it's tight end.
Okay.
Yeah, Dulcich right now is behind Everett for me, but if Williams plays, he'll move up clearly. So he's I hope what we got last week and the fact that the Broncos are saying he's going to play more of a wide receiver role without Sutton there in a game again, chasing points, just feels like it's a natural setup for Dulcich to have a good game.
Okay, guys, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we got the Dolphins and the Chargers, a Sunday night special. Sure, why not? We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Dolphins-Chargers, who wins?
Dolphins.
I think it's a must-win game for both teams. Will there be more Dolphins fans or Chargers fans there?
I mean, based on that stadium, I would assume Dolphins fans, but who knows?
I'm going to lean to the Chargers.
Okay. The Chargers, you're like, they're good, but they're not great. Well, last year they were 5th in points per game, and they were 4th in red zone touchdown rate. This year they're 14th in points per game. They are 25th in red zone touchdown rates. When they get in the red zone, they're not scoring a lot of touchdowns, and that is hurting them. I saw this stat in the Miami Herald. The Chargers are allowing 5.43 rushing yards per attempt. It's currently the worst single season mark for any team in the Super Bowl era.
Crazy.
And they're actually even worse than that when you just look at running backs, something like 5.6 yards per carry to running backs. But Jamie, it's a contrast of styles. And a lot of times teams just don't throw on the Chargers, and that's why wide receivers aren't really having a lot of big games against the Chargers because the targets are low. The Dolphins, 3rd fewest running back carries in the NFL. The Chargers, the 6th most running back carries per game against them. 5 of the last 7 quarterbacks have thrown 30 or fewer passes against the Chargers. So it's interesting. What kind of game plan do you think the Dolphins have here? Do we get enough, running carries basically for these backs?
I think you do. I think what we saw from the Dolphins following the Jeff Wilson trade, that I forget which game it was. He had 17 carries before the Houston game. It seemed
Browns,
as if
right?
they were trying to get their ground game going. Which game?
Was it the Browns?
May have been.
I think they slaughtered them, didn't they?
Well, that's what I was looking at. Was they played the 2 teams in the last 3 games that are similar running back matchups, the Browns and the Texans. They ran for 195 yards against the Browns and 66 against the Texans.
Right, but that was the game where Wilson had the calf cramp or whatever, and didn't finish the game, or it seemed like he left the game first.
They all left the game, right? Yeah, he did leave the game, and then Tua left the game in the.
Yeah, but Wilson came back at the end though, or at some point he came back.
He definitely left the game.
Yes, and Mostert did not play in that game. The Browns game, Mostert did play, and so that's why I think you mentioned Heath. Mostert is a high end flex. I totally agree. I think you can make an argument that both guys can be starting this week. Based on how they'll probably be used. You have tackle issues, so. Run blocking versus pass blocking. Obviously, your tackles are involved in run blocking, but, it's easier to sort of, run up the middle on the Chargers and how their defense has looked. You have a quarterback that is a little bit gimpy with an ankle injury, a receiver who's gimpy with a leg injury and Jalen Waddle. And so it makes a lot of sense to take some pressure off of everything and run the ball. And so I think that's the hope for Jeff Wilson. It's the hope for Raheem Mostert. Again, I would not be surprised if Mostert is better, but Wilson's just been better of the 2 since the trade. So that's why I'd give him the slight edge. But I think both guys are in play. I think both guys you should at least consider as flexes. And there's a chance for some big games here for both of them. Not that you're benching Tyreek Hill or you're benching Jalen Waddle because there's too much potential for those guys, or Tua. But I do think that Mike McDaniel's smart enough to realize this is a team that you run against, and hopefully they do.
And the thing is, the Dolphins, they are 10th in pass attempts per game. They're not the Chargers. The Chargers are 2nd behind the Bucs. Chargers throw almost 43 times per game. The Dolphins are about 36 times per game. But the Dolphins are 2nd in passing yards. They don't have to throw that much to be very efficient, to put up yards. They are arguably the most efficient passing offense in football. But things change when they don't have their left tackle. Okay, so Tyreek Hill's a no-brainer. Would you start Jerry Jeudy or Jalen Waddle?
Waddle.
They're close. Waddle right now, if he's gimping through practice the rest of the week. Now, and to be fair, Judy's also gimping through practice. He had an ankle injury that he was limited with. So Waddle was struggling last week as well against the 49ers, but I think Waddle just has more upside.
Okay, so then Tua, like full faith in him or what? And then what about Herbert? Like Tua or Herbert, and do you have faith in these guys?
More faith in Tua than Herbert, but that might change if Williams does get in a full practice and looks like he's good to go, and then he has his full complement of weapons. And Tua's, still dealing with this ankle injury, so they're very close. I think you can make an argument for both sides. I just think Tua's shown you enough this season that he's been the better of the two, and I would lean toward him.
And I'm not considering sitting either one.
Right.
They're both just no doubt about it starters for me.
The only thing that I would look at is if you have Geno Smith, one of those guys. I think Geno's in a little bit of a better spot against the Panthers where they could struggle to run, and he's throwing the ball maybe 40 times. And then potentially, I don't think a lot of people would do this, and I get it, but Kirk Cousins, just because of what this matchup is and the projected score.
What about Goff?
Same thing. You can make a case for Goff too, over them.
Okay. Yeah, Herbert. I mean, it's just really frustrating with Herbert. It's just he's not throwing the touchdowns. He's got the fourth most attempts in the green zone and the 11th most touchdowns in that range. He has 6 games this year, Herbert, with 0 or 1 touchdown pass. He had 5 such games last season in a full season. So, they're still throwing a ton. He's just not delivering with the touchdowns.
After what you see right now, and the NFL draft is tomorrow, and both guys are available as they were so many years ago. You're the Miami Dolphins. Who do you take?
Burrow. I mean,
smart.
Herbert. Not even a question.
Not even a question.
And because here's where I was going with that. If you listened, you guys didn't, but if you listened to Monday's Beyond the Box Score episode, we did a Herbert versus Burrow kind of breakdown. And I did a Twitter poll in
Herbert versus Burrow?
Yeah, Herbert versus Burrow. What did I say?
You said Burrow, but we're not talking Burrow. So
but we did Herbert versus Burrow. In July, I did a Twitter poll basically asking people who they wanted as their NFL quarterback. 75% of people said Herbert. I did a poll again on Sunday or Monday. 75% of people said Burrow. We were still a little unsure. I wanted to say Herbert would be my favorite, but I don't know. Maybe underestimating Burrow a little bit, overestimating Herbert. But I would take Herbert over Tua. Would you? And Heath said yes. Jamie, how about you?
I would as well, because the size is hard to get by and the arm strength. But I think it's hard to knock Tua continually, and that's all we've done is knock Tua continually. Certainly not this season by comparison to previous years. Our buddy, our good friend, our former coworker Andrew Ballmer, who does social media for the Hard Rock, the casino in Miami, the sportsbook. He said he was looking for, quote, a hit piece on people who were negative toward Tua, and he found a clip of me and Pete Prisco from 2020 where Tua was about to make his first start, and it was who would you rather have right now, Tua or Herbert? And we both said Herbert, but it wasn't like being negative about Tua, but it's just funny, like that's it's a big conversation. It's
yeah, I mean, I'll give you a controversial take. I think Tua is a bit of a system quarterback. Obviously, he's good, but
I don't think that's
trying to get on the hit piece.
Look at the 2 places he's had success.
Yeah, I mean, like he's got Waddle and Hill making a ton of plays for him, and I think Mike McDaniel looks like he's just absolutely brilliant. This is all from afar, Heath. I could be wrong, but
I think
Herbert in that system, I think he owns the NFL.
I don't want this to happen because I live in South Florida and I have many friends who are diehard Dolphins fans, and this has been the happiest couple of months of the time that I've lived in South Florida for them. They are just so geeked. But if the Dolphins lose this game, I'm not sure they're going to make the playoffs.
I guess I haven't really looked at that.
They'll be 1 game ahead of the Chargers, who are not currently in the playoffs, without the tiebreaker against the Chargers. And they play at Buffalo next week. Then they play the Packers. Then they play at New England. Then they play the Jets.
Are the Jets currently in the playoffs though? Because I think the Jets are going to fade. I haven't seen their schedule, but I think they're going to fade.
It's going to come down to does the Raiders or the Browns get into the race and make it uncomfortable for them? You got to worry about the Ravens now, just because of the quarterback situation. So they could be in trouble. Jets can be in trouble. Patriots certainly in trouble. Chargers are clearly not solidified, but yes, they would have a stronger footing if they win this game. So there's a lot at play here for these teams.
Are you considering the Dolphins are going to lose to the Patriots, Heath?
At New England?
Yeah, they're going to crush the Patriots.
I wouldn't bet on that at all.
All
Just for your
You heard
reference,
it
we'll
here.
move on. The Jets after they play the Bills this week play the Lions, Jacksonville, Seattle, and Miami.
That's 1-4, 1-3. I'm serious. Like the Lions are better than them. Seattle's.
I don't know why you would say the Lions are better than them.
Lions are good. The Lions are favored against the Vikings. The Lions are good. They're solid.
Lions have also proven that they're a little tough on the road, though.
Right, and that's games in Newark.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You want my Lions theory, by the way? What they
What?
should do? The Lions should go get Brady this offseason.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Heath, let's talk about the Chargers wide receivers. We're definitely starting Eckler. Talked about Herbert. All right. Break down the Chargers wide receivers.
I'm starting Keenan Allen. I don't really want to start the rest of the wide receivers. Josh Palmer's a number 3. If Mike Williams plays, he'll be a high-end number 3, right in the Gabe Davis, Mike Evans range, probably right behind those guys. That's where I'm at him. I'm not really considering DeAndre Carter.
So wait, Mike Williams would be where?
26-ish at wide receiver. Palmer's currently, I think, 32, 33.
Jamie?
Palmer is 26 right now without Williams. I think Williams would be in that same range because he's probably the most likely to see Xavier Howard if he's playing. So that's not going to be easy for him. Plus, not 100%. So I think Heath is right there. More of a high-end number 3 receiver in his first game back against a very good corner. So that's I kind of view Palmer and Williams not fairly probably, but in the same range. Just based on what the production has been for Palmer more times than not.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. You would think the way the perception of the Dolphins and their defense, you would think that they're a great matchup for wide receivers. They really haven't been. They're 12th best against receivers. They're not a bad matchup, but I mean, look, like the Niners guys were bad last week. Jefferson.
That's kind of been why they've been good, though, right? Look at the quarterbacks that they played.
Yeah, I mean, look, Stephon Diggs had 7 for 74 on 11 targets. Jamar Chase had 4 catches for 81 yards on 6 targets. The Jets receivers were terrible. Justin Jefferson had 107 yards, no touchdowns. There was a little bit of that quarterback thing. Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't have a good game. I don't remember what his health was, but he had 7. Yeah, I think he was healthy. He had 7 catches for 69 yards on 10 targets. Amari Cooper was dreadful. Maybe, it just kind of occurred to me because even I've been pushing this narrative, a great matchup for wide receivers. It's not one you run away from. But if you're talking about a guy like Josh Palmer, who really hasn't been that great, been pretty hit or miss, I'm not sure that this is the – I don't know. I struggle with it because you expect the Dolphins to score a lot of points and you expect the Chargers to throw a ton of passes, and you want to start guys in this game.
I'm not sure if I expect the Dolphins to score a lot of points if Armstead's out.
All right. Gerald Everett, starter sit.
Given the position that he plays, if Mike Williams is out, he's a must-start guy. If Mike Williams is in, he's a borderline starter.
He's more borderline for me, even without Williams, but I wouldn't argue too much over it. It was a good game last week. It was awful in his first game with Keenan Allen. I think you probably expect 5 targets and hope he gets you 10 fantasy points.
Cleveland is at Cincinnati. Okay. I don't know how much you care. Jamie, you might care about it. I feel like you like this stuff. The Browns kind of have their number. They've won 7 of the last 8 games. Joe Burrow is 0-4 against the Browns. They were terrible in that Monday Night Football game. Their offensive line was a mess. Myles Garrett lived in the backfield. Cleveland sacked him 5 times. Burrow in his rookie year, though, scored like 30 points and 40 points in 2 games against them as a rookie. Then he was pretty bad in the last 2 games against them. But does the history matter of Cleveland just kind of owning the Cincinnati Bengals?
I mean, you would have said, wow, Joe Burrow's never lost or Patrick Mahomes never beat Joe Burrow. Well, that's going to change this year. So, sometimes these things matter. But I think you got to look at the talent right now. The situation with the Browns offense, Deshaun Watson should be better after knocking off the rust, you would hope. But he looked so bad last week. The Bengals just look like they're clicking at the right time. We spent a lot of time the last couple of weeks before the Garoppolo injury saying, man, look how the 49ers are starting to look. The McCaffrey trade and defense getting healthier a little bit, with Armstead coming back and look like they're starting to make a push. It feels like the Bengals starting to make a push, and that's the type of team, that you want to start to back if you're looking to back a contender. So I think this could be a situation where Mixon back, Chase now a full game back, them probably hearing for, by the time they get to kickoff, 7 days of you haven't beaten the Browns, you haven't beaten the Browns, you haven't beaten the Browns in their building, coming off the victory against the Chiefs. Unless there's some hangover from that, I think they're going to smash the Browns.
Oh, okay. So are there any tricky calls on the Bengals side?
Boyd.
He's not just a sit at this point?
No, I don't. I mean, again, we're 6 teams on a bye, and no Hurst. So, he catches that touchdown last week. You probably feel a little bit different, when he's wide open and the ball hits him in the hands. So he's still going to get probably 7 targets, with Hurst not there. And if for whatever reason the run game stalls, then we might see a little bit of an uptick in production. But I agree with you. I mean, in most cases, he's probably more of a sit. I mean, I made the case 2 weeks ago that you could drop him. So not a slam dunk by any stretch, but he's in that gray area for sure.
And then Heath, break down the Cleveland Browns, specifically their passing game, because everyone's starting Nick Chubb. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if Njoku's able to go, then he's going to be right around tight end 10 to 12 probably. I don't want any part of Deshaun Watson until he shows that he's an NFL caliber quarterback again. But Amari Cooper has so much upside, he's hard to get away from. I just moved him down again, but he's still in my top 20. I think you're probably starting Amari Cooper unless you're really fortunate to have 2 guys we have ranked ahead of him. I don't really have any interest in anything but stashing Donovan Peoples-Jones until we see Watson look like Watson.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all right. Okay, cool. Donovan Peoples-Jones or Tyler Boyd if you're desperate.
Boyd.
I probably should change that. I right now have Peoples-Jones ranked 1 or 2 spots ahead. It's just more of a hope that Watson can connect with him this week.
If you're like me and you've held on to Kareem Hunt all year, and almost everyone has, he had 11 touches last week. Woo! That's his second game with more than 7 touches in his last 7 games. So hooray for Kareem Hunt. A little mini slump, by the way, for Nick Chubb. 15, rounding up and down. 15, 10, 20, and 8 fantasy points in PPR in his last 4 games. All right. I think one more game here, and that is Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Oh, somebody in our chat, Truly Epic, is guessing our height.
Okay.
He guessed Adam 5'10", Heath 6'2", Jamie 5'11". He then amended it to Adam 5'9", Heath still at 6'2", and Jamie 5'10".
So he's only 3 inches high on you, but you got the other 2, right?
I'm almost 5'9". So close that I really feel like they should have given it to me on my driver's license, but it says 5'8". I reject that. I always say I'm 5'9". Jamie's 5'11", right?
I'm 5'10" and a half, so I tell people I'm 5'11".
Yeah.
See, I always tell people I'm 6'2", and I always hear, no, you're a lot taller than that. And
Yeah,
I think it's because everybody else thinks they're taller than they are, or claims they're taller than they are, and so they see me a couple inches taller than them. They're like, "Well, you got to be at least 6'4". I'm 6'1".
You're tall and thin, so you look taller than you probably are.
That could be it.
Do you know the movie? You're tall and fat.
No.
So, what is this? Like, yeah, and you're short and ugly. Give me my pen back. Something like that. That's Back to School. Rodney Dangerfield? No?
Yeah, no, I've seen it. I don't remember the line.
He's giving away like pens to everybody in the bookstore, and the kid's like, I know you. You're tall and fat. That's his store. It's like, yeah, you're short and ugly. Give me my pen back. All right, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and whatever. Mark Andrews and Pat Freiermuth are starts. Where, Heath, did you come out on Tyler Huntley this week, who's 26% rostered as of yesterday?
High-end number 2 quarterback. I'm excited to start him in a 2-quarterback or super flex league. Unfortunately, I used all my fab on Jimmy Garoppolo, and so I'm not going to have that option. But no, I think last year gave you 14 fantasy points per game with his yards. It was about 60 rushing yards, but 190 passing yards. And so if he has 1 touchdown and doesn't turn the ball over, that's a good day. If he gets multiple touchdowns, it's awesome. But he also, I think, in 3 of his 4 starts, did not produce a touchdown last year. So somewhere in that, and he might turn the ball over a couple of times, somewhere in that 14 to 19 point range is probably what you expect.
The turnover
can win you your week or lose you your week. It's that the swings are very wild.
Yeah, I mean, 40 or more rushing yards in every game last year and last week. That's a nice floor, especially in a 4-point per passing touchdown league. Those turnovers, though, they're a problem for Tyler Huntley. What's the deal with J.K. Dobbins? What's the deal with the Baltimore backfield, actually? Dobbins in particular.
I would say even if Dobbins plays, it's hands off for everybody. You can't have some success running at the Steelers defense, but Gus Edwards does look like a plotter at this point. He's clearly not going to help you in the passing game. So if he doesn't score, you're getting a very empty stat line. And Kenyon Drake is still, in a timeshare where I would anticipate, unless they're in trouble, he's not going to play more than Gus Edwards. I think Edwards gets the first crack at it and probably on the field if it's a low-scoring game and they're competitive, which is probably what's going to end up happening. So this feels like a field goal fest. It feels like a defensive battle like they typically have been for the majority of their rivalry. There's not a lot to love about this game.
Yeah, but, as much as I don't really nobody likes Deontay Johnson at this point. He is 4 to 5 catches in 8 straight games. So you're right. If you just want to wake up and put 10 PPR fantasy points in your lineup, right in that range, do you feel like you'll at least get that from Deontay Johnson? Or is the matchup so bad that he may not even be able to do that?
I hate that Deontay Johnson has become Jacoby Myers.
Yeah.
But
and by the way, go ahead.
I'm probably starting him in a PPR league this week where I start 3 wide receivers.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah.
He's this upside apparently is the same as the floor, but he's going to get you somewhere between 10 and 12 PPR fantasy points, probably.
It's 8.5 to 11 PPR fantasy points in 7 of his last 8 games. Jamie, you got the squeaky crickets for George Pickens. What do you think?
It'd be nice. I mean, it's not an easy matchup, and it's a very tough. The targets. He's been. I think it's now 5 games in a row, 6 or less. The last 2 weeks have been very frustrating. So great. I hope that happens, but I mean, the Ravens, against a rookie quarterback could be an ugly game. This feels like 9-6.
Yeah. Okay, so last question then. Which DST do you prefer?
Ravens. That's close.
I think that's right.
We are done. All right, we got a live stream at 2 p.m. Eastern on today, Thursday. Join us, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. And for Jamie and Heath, I am Adam. We'll talk to you tomorrow with Starter Sit for the NFC home games and a recap of the game that everybody is so excited for tonight. See ya.